As the sun sets on the Nintendo Switch, I got thinking, what's the game people asked for the most this console? Many people wanted an open world Pokemon game, we kinda got that. A port of Persona 5 after Joker's reveal, we got that one too. Metroid Prime 4 is somehow both a game that's been announced, that people are still asking for. You got your Revival Freaks, F-Zero, Punch-Out, Kid Icarus, all of which had a rumor at some point. And of course, the Wii U gems that live in undying speculation. But for me, I always thought that the Switch had misinterpreted its opportunity for proof of concept like the other consoles had. Nintendo 64 had Mario 64, the DS had Nintendogs, the Wii U had Nintendo Land, and the Switch had 1-2 Switch. That's like including jail time on a resume. Every aspect of the Switch had already been redeemed. A touchscreen, motion controls, 2 controllers attached. Really the big thing for it was portability, with Zelda proving that even huge games could become a completely on-the-go experience. I think this game showed more of the console's MO than this one. 1-2 Switch did nothing special. It literally told us to just ignore the console and then just have fun with motion control gimmicks. And that sucked, but if Nintendo wanted to give us a game on the go with motion control gimmicks alongside a system that splits into 2 controllers, then perhaps this could be a perfect time to revisit the magical title that shaped the very motion control. I was not alone. Many people were speculating and hoping for the return of Wii Sports onto the Switch. Leading up to the pandemic, families had been revisiting it and falling in love all over again, with maybe a few television smashes here and there. A port, a remake, a brand new game even, any of these would have made perfect sense. But, as this company has proven time and time again, you have to be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Ah yes, the brutal consequences of optimism. I legit never planned to talk about this game again, but that April Fool's video I made last year and all the people consuming it unaware that it was an April Fool's joke, and I felt that since the game was finally concluded with updates, we could give a definitive look back to round it all up and judge the final product starting at the very beginning. This is the story of Nintendo Switch Sports, my most disappointing game for the Switch that originally was my most wanted. I mean, well, my most realistic one. With the success of the console, we already knew things like Animal Crossing and WarioWare were bound to show up at some point. The sports series was in this weird limbo where Nintendo clearly still remembered it, but in the void for the Switch, they were like, here you go. But that's what made the moment of the reveal just so juicy.
It's a new iteration of the Wii Sports series.
Okay, so God is real. He's making miracles happen, all fighting in the world has stopped, and everyone shares a bright future. Just kidding. Have you ever felt a quicker grounding to reality than in like the 9 frames used to transition from the title screen to the main menu? Because holy sh**.
What? Nintendo Switch Sports.
I did not see that coming! Show it!
Here are the sports included in the Nintendo Switch sports game.
What the heck is that?
Whoa, that's not Mies. What am I looking at?
What the f do we have here?
Nintendo Switch Sports.
Here are the sports. included in the-
Yes! Yes! Oh my!
Here
What
are the
is this?
sports included
Predicted it.
You predicted it! What the f is that?
in the-
We all had ideas about how the sports series would look on the Switch, or just ideas about how the sports series looks, how it feels, how it communicates with audiences. This is not a part of that. Please, it's a series made of me's, not these. Jeez. And you remember the posts, and you remember the videos. I know I do. To summarize this very beaten up horse, the new sports mates looked corporately ill-intentioned. They looked cheap in the sense of wanting to appeal to kids with just colors and facial expressions and cosmetic outfits. Do we really need all that? People who did like them were quick to accuse the Mii defenders of holding the game to unrealistic nostalgic standards, which is definitely going to factor into a lot of this, but putting that aside, I think the Mii fandom was more about how Nintendo built an empire using them. Being able to go outside the game to fully customize the Mii, make it your own, and then seeing it pop up in not just Wii Sports, but Wii Sports Resort, Wii Party, Tomodachi Life, Nintendo Land, and so many others. It was the beloved recurring character that traveled across generations. Where the sports mates' continuity ended at just Switch Sports, they would never be able to fill in the carryover legacy of the original series. Now, the future plot twist that we have the benefit of knowing in this retrospective is that none of this game does. For better or for worse, definitely for worse, it's carved out an identity completely of its own. So I will say that in the 2 years since this reveal, the Sportsmates have grown on me, and this is probably the least of the game's problems by the time we actually discuss the game itself. Another big counterclaim to anyone upset with the Sportsmates was that Mii's were from 2006 and in serious need of a facelift for modern audiences. Honestly, they were right. The Wii was 2 consoles behind the Switch, and these things had hardly gone through any evolution. If only there was a game that offered some sort of way to modernize them. It is hard to believe that this was just 3 seconds of the trailer, and maybe harder to believe that it gets worse with each passing scene. Okay, so the sports. The first 3 are returning from older titles. Tennis, bowling, and chambara. These were all fantastic sports in their original games, so that makes sense. Now for the 3 new sports, soccer. Okay, yeah, that looks fun, maybe a little familiar, but it looks like it could be a good time. It's even got the ring fit thigh tape with it, cool. Badminton. That's a little strange. I'm not here to insult the sport, but don't you think that if you're gonna include 3 new games out of 6, and one of which is already tennis, don't you think you might want something a bit further in genetics? When Switch Sports is only gonna have 6 games and Resort had 12 that were of Olympic variety, don't you think you've proved the point about how motion controls work as rackets over a net? Hey, it's no big deal. Just show us the final sport. Aw, no, for real, what is this selection of sports? 3 of them involve a net, then bowling, then sword fighting, then soccer, which isn't even complete at launch? Resort had 12 sports, and I can't even get baseball or boxing back? But fortunately, and I use that word in a buttery sense of irony, free updates were gonna come to hopefully fill in some of those spots. They started by announcing golf coming in fall, and who knows what other sports they could announce after that. Ah, yes, the brutal consequences of optimism. Do you guys want me to still give the speech of, like, you've probably heard by now. And so in the rest of that trailer, they announced online play, featuring things like a battle royale bowling mode, and a release date within just over 2 months, and a playtest scheduled for February. The descending hype through the trailer was a nasty wake-up call to just how much Nintendo has changed over the years. This wasn't a Wii Sports successor, not outside the name. This was just Nintendo capitalizing on fan demand the same way they did with Metroid Prime Federation Force. And while it seemed all was lost, I did enjoy what happened immediately after the trailer in the Direct, when Koizumi came on screen to demo Switch Sports with Takahashi. Is there anything more reassuring to a game like this than to see 2 old dudes enjoying themselves playing it? No, that's Wii Sports in a nutshell. I love this, it's goofy, they're having a good time, and I feel like ever since the era of the Switch, Iwata's passing and Reggie leaving, Nintendo doesn't really do fun direct skits like they used to. So seeing them laugh while playing this game is a reminder that maybe that spirit they shipped the original with is still in there. Pre-orders were available not long after the Direct, and at a, whoa, that's pretty cheap, 40 bucks. Red flag number 1. We're talking about a company that regularly overprices their stuff, and it's the eternal subject of debate. So if even they recognize that a game is not worth what they usually price at $60, there is a reason. Red flag number 2, the playtest. For me, I did not play this, and I don't really remember why. I can't really comment on it, but what, okay, hold on. Hey, did you play the Switch Sports playtests there back in 2022?
Sure did.
Nice.
Yeah. Did you?
No? If Nintendo was going to go ahead and do this kind of beta thing, they had to have been very confident in the game, and considering that the main details of its progression were still murky, I'm sure they were. Most people came back from the playtest with a positive experience, and that's why it was really strange when Nintendo made everyone agree to not talk about it, and then everybody did anyway. Thinking back now, this is probably why I avoided it. Nintendo 1984 looking ass. Finally, it is Friday, April 29th, 2022, 12 a.m., and Switch Sports is available in North America. And Switch Sports is something really rare happened because it's somehow worse than the trailer could have depicted it to be. All 6 sports are in the game. They play mostly how they promise. Give me a sec. The sports mates are there. The option to play online is there, but option. See, it's easy to hate on Switch Sports for what it actually is, but you must understand by now that there's so many ways Nintendo could have avoided the unnecessary backlash for this game, starting with them being more honest about what this new game exactly was. It was a sports game, and that's all most people needed to make their decision, yes. But it also has live service mechanics, a system of rotating cosmetic rewards that require online to achieve, and this was never mentioned. Nor did they mention that the rewards are locked to accounts either. It turns out Switch Sports very closely resembles a live service game, where to get the cosmetic rewards, you have 3 weeks to score a certain amount of points playing the online modes before new rewards would rotate in. This, of course, means a lot of things, like that to fully enjoy the game, you'll need an online membership. You can still get rewards offline, 2 of them, in a week, and that means you'll miss out on the 10 remaining items plus the big reward every time. This is vaguely talked about in only one trailer for a total of 6 seconds and on the website 3 weeks before launch, when it is such a huge part of the core experience. And yet things like the required online membership and offline trial mode are never mentioned. I know I am also the person who says why are clothes and cosmetics such a big deal, so I shouldn't be the same person to be upset about this, but for Switch Sports, and especially at launch, it was like the only deal. Cosmetic skins are the sole reason this entry is viable over the others. Turns out, even with online, you can get the unlockables, but only for 21 days. This upset people who felt 3 weeks was not a long enough window. It upset people who got all the items and wanted to unlock more without waiting till the next week. And it upset people who were waiting to buy the game till it had more sports, because they would also be locked out of the rotations from before they owned the game. But perhaps the crowd that had it worst would be the people without internet access at all, as they could not get any of the cosmetic rewards, period. In all these cases, simply taking the clock offline would have fixed everything. People who wanted to binge the game could time travel and grind out the rewards at their own leisure, similar to Animal Crossing. People without online wouldn't be held back from content. And to this day, it's hard to see those 3-week rotations as any reason but making sure an online membership is active and paid for long term. At best, the rewards will offer something seasonally like spooky costumes in October or festive ones during the holidays, but Spoko Square does not update with the seasons, nor does anything else happen that makes the game being tied to an online clock seem like an in-world incentive. Alas, it seems Nintendo would rather have people who bought this game pay for a Nintendo Switch membership for at least 1 year to 100% complete the game and get all the rewards, at least for the first year. Now, it would be one thing for Nintendo to do this, it would be another for them to do this and force everyone without a subscription into trial mode. Trial mode is when you try to play online but you have no membership, and so you get matched with bots and earn 2 items a week. If one were to only play the game like this, that's a lot of math. F it, I got time. 6 years to get all 52 sets, my god. And why does the game still act like it needs to load and wait for players when it's just bots? Because, why only 2 items a week? Because, why does this game not let you play with your friends over the internet in matchmaking? Because, fuck you. I haven't even talked about the sports yet, oh my god. And I'm about to, but I just can't stress how misleading this all was on Nintendo's part. They got a lot of backlash for this, and yeah, they deserve all of it, but we'll total the score later. Now give yourself a pat on the back for making it through all of that. Woo! We listened to Voyan rant for a long time without any humor and just let him get his feelings out.
Shout out to everybody with
Switch Sports.
I kind of feel sorry for you. Oh, yeah.
If you made the conscious decision to buy Nintendo Switch Sports, you probably bought it for the sports. Motion controls plus Nintendo's online. Gee, what could possibly go wrong? Alright, so let's begin with tennis, which I previously said was my favorite sport, and it is now my second favorite. Aside from being able to spam, tennis really hasn't changed at all. Most of the sport's intensity boils down to timing, ball speed, and whether you want to hit it from the front or the Of course, the simple goal is to just read and confuse your opponent by using the Joy-Con techniques to manipulate things like shot position and which of your two characters will be returning. A common strategy is to have them dive for the ball as much as possible to harness weak spots, or trick their front player into smashing the ball out of bounds in attempt to block. It's a fun sport for the mind games, and one of the ones that demonstrates the superior tech of the Joy-Con over the Wii Remote pretty well. But then you have Chambara. And when people stereotype motion controls for being inaccurate and Nintendo's Online for being a laggy mess, I believe this is the experience of which they speak. Chambara is the spiritual successor of swordplay with a much simpler tactical setup than tennis, where you just want to hit your opponent off the platform, you just want to deplatform them. But the conflict here is not human to human, it is controller to human, because I swear this sport never works across any of the sword types. When I'm blocking, I get hit. When I go to hit in the direction of the other player's vulnerability, it is blocked. Sometimes I will swing and nothing will happen, or somehow both attacks go through. And then there's just times like, watching some of this footage slowed back, this might even be an action versus animation thing where if the attack is triggered while you are directionally blocking incorrectly but you correct it at the last second, the attack will still succeed because initiated while you were open. So it makes you question whether or not you were actually guarding, then throw in internet latency and the game telling you there's Joy-Con interference even though the Switch is 2 feet in front of me. Honestly, I think I lost the minute I decided to put Chambara in the queue. Switching back to good sports, bowling. Bowling has returned to being my favorite sport, as it was in the first 3 games, even though I am awful at it in real life. Bowling is not just what I play the most, it's the only sport I really trust, the only one I got A rank in, and I heavily believe that's because it doesn't use the online for anything but relaying a personal score. It hasn't changed a ton since the Wii days, aside from forcing the player to hold the trigger, which can be super frustrating to muscle memory even 2 years later, because you are supposed to release the ball, not protect your television. I'll say though, if you can get past that, bowling feels pretty good. Online is set up elimination style with 16 players. It's fun. It does take like a year to play. For all the constant action you get in the other sports, you gotta wait extra long to find people, then you gotta wait forever for them to finish before moving frames. Even if you're going to lose and already in the elimination bracket, you still have to wait for others to finish their round, which was made worse after the updates. Plus, the special bowling courses are randomly given out, for which there is a time and a place, and I want to be in charge of both, god. Yeah, bowling is great though. Badminton, I don't really have a ton to say about badminton. For some reason, it's all the unflattering parts of tennis, including the invisible stamina meter. Send the shuttlecock to the open area and exhaust your opponent using drop shots and fast shots or slam shots, whatever they're called. Maybe the worst part of badminton is how long some of these rallies can go, only so you get like 30 points in the reward section. It's not very good bang for your buck. Volleyball. Actually, you know what? It's kind of grown on me. First of all, this sport has slightly updated in the summer after release, so the footage will vary between launch and now. This sport is a series of flashcards of hitting the right poses at the right time. Maybe you can describe them all like that, but the cues are on screen for volleyball. And it's pretty simple. You just gotta do the motion when it seems appropriate for your character in the game. That's all. So what's not to love about volleyball? Well, there's something I'm leaving out, and that is that this is a team sport. Meaning that a lot of your fate is decided by your teammates' ability and skill. Are they gonna block? Are they just not gonna hit the ball? Or are they gonna quit early because we're losing by a single point? That, my friends, is an entirely separate layer of RNG. And it's one that this game has never really had to be concerned with. But why take a chance on one teammate when you can 4 of them? In 4 versus 4 online action, of course not 4 of your own teammates, that would allow communication, and soccer is not a sport about communication, really none of these are. Soccer is Rocket League, but with very slow players and a super wonky ball, and just, yeah, it's lots of fun. I really want to kick the other players, and I don't mean that as in I want to boot them from the lobby. Half the time the players just leave on their own anyway, and then you are just down a person. I mean, I would love if this game really accepted its Rocket League understudy identity and allowed me to attack the other players to give my team a temporary advantage. Because I said it before and I will say it again, the player either needs to move significantly faster, or the field needs to be shrunk, or there needs to be something else, because there is so much running after the ball. That's like all soccer is. On the small miracle that you actually do have the ball, that's when your beautiful, educated, randomized teammate will come steal it from you and kick it towards the other team. And those are the 6 sports and the basic extent of Switch Sports at launch. Playing locally is just that without rewards, and playing with friends online is just that without rewards. If you're thinking to yourself, what about the side modes? What side modes? Bowling has 2 types of bowling, the aforementioned special bowling, just an obstacle course, and soccer has shootout mode, which I guess is a cool demonstration of the leg strap accessory, and the only reason you paid $10 extra at launch. You can't even play it online though, like, where's 100-pin bowling, showdown, target practice? These would have been a great way for people to train for the sport and understand its mechanics better, especially for Chambara. The side modes for sword play were so fun. They were like their own games, and specifically Showdown, which had levels that took you around the island. Oh yeah, that's right, Wii Sports Resort let you do that. Can you do that in Switch Sports? No. I hope you like menus and Eternal Sunshine, because that's Spoko Square. Switch Sports has such a high amount of wasted opportunities that it hurts. I don't even care if they wanted to cut sports, but that focus on rich atmosphere that Wii Sports Resort introduced takes such a huge blow, and it didn't need to. Yes, the city setting is very different from the island resort setting, so the sports being different makes sense. Sure, I will accept that. But after building this entire physical location, I see no reason you couldn't have the opportunity to explore. Like a free roam mode around Spoko Square, maybe one where you could see other players and their activities, or the Miiverse style posts like in Splatoon. For all the focus on player versus player in this game, there's not really a sense of community. Maybe with the new cosmetics, there could be crossover events. Similar to how other games had Nintendo-themed clothing, why not for Switch Sports? But that never happened either. The most the game will hand you is the occasional triple experience. Spoko Square never changes. Players are never given the chance to look at this place as anything but a transitional interface, an urbanly disguised menu. When people say this game is soulless, they are speaking from far more than just rotting nostalgia. It's not just that Nintendo abandoned their old values, but that they implemented these new ones. How did we go from the game that was all about bringing the room together to the game that actively discourages local play and only rewards online activity? A game that prided itself on anyone being able to play it, to a game that gates its progression to paying subscribers. Is this the cliche line where I say it's about the money? Because, well, yeah, that part is clearly obvious. Perhaps it was the pandemic that encouraged this, or maybe just the climate of modern gaming. Lots has changed in the near 2 decades that cover the first and last points in the series. I understand that a tech demo amount of content wasn't going to sell this game alone. In 2006, the motion control was something everyone had to experience. In the 2020s, gamers seem to despise them more and more when they show up. So I really can't fault the developers for taking alternate routes, but appearances? That's what we're gonna go with? Overly animated characters, cosmetics, and a map menu? Well, perhaps in this situation, the worst part of Switch Sports could also be its best. The free update model has successfully turned games around before, and it could just be the thing that takes Switch Sports speeding past the finish line.
Ah, yes, the test.
Well, by summer of 2022, the many issues that surrounded the game had been made well known to and by the public. People like me were playing it consistently to get the rewards, but also complaining that we had to do so, which is the entire premise of the last video I made on Switch Sports. The game could eventually get good with more updates, but if you put it down, then by that time you'd have like nothing because you missed the weekly rotation, so I was just suckered into playing this game that I hated that could be someday good. And in July, it looked like that someday was coming sooner than we thought, with Nintendo reintroducing some familiar faces. No, this is great, for real. Some tweaks were made to volleyball and bowling, soccer got leg strap support, and some quality of life options. S rank and room IDs were also introduced, but easily the most important thing was the return of the legends. By holding down either ZL and L or ZR and R when selecting a difficulty for local, you could battle the iconic pros from the originals. And I gotta be honest, as someone who wasn't very confident in the sports to begin with, you throw a broken CPU at me, and oh, it's these guys? Oh, I love it. Once again, pouring water over our judgment. Maybe Nintendo hadn't forgotten? Say what you will about the game, this right here is pure fan service. They had every opportunity to emphasize the sports mates. Every single other CPU in the game is a sports mate, but they didn't, because they knew nothing is scarier than the same character coming back to bully you 15 years later. At this point, things were looking up for Switch Sports. Just 3 months in for a nice little treat of an update, and right around the corner, we'd be able to play golf the coming fall.
We previously announced that the update would release this fall. However, we'd like a bit more time for development, so the update is now planned for this holiday. Please wait just a little longer.
How long should golf take? What is the prep time, Pinterest? I mean, in the original trailer from 7 months before this, you literally showed it, so you must have been pretty close. But now, we gotta wait till when? Hold on, I hate golf. Why am I upset? If you think about it, this is like the most golf thing ever. The game where you have to wait is making you wait. I don't even know what that is. Golf launched in late November 2022, which is technically still fall. But before we talk about that, there is important context in that the 7 months since this game's release, this whole time, the poor fans were like data mining and shit. They were like, yo, that looks like a baseball stadium. Dodgeball could be in. Spoko Square is the city, so basketball, that could be a thing. And they just fixed on an unbelievably high level of cope, whatever it took to get them through summer and fall. There was no way that Nintendo was gonna bring anything less than their A game for the sports series, right? Only the best of the best. Basically, there were 2 groups of Switch Sports victims? 2 kinds of Switch Sports victims. People who got the game and immediately realized, oh, Nintendo pulled a Nintendo in 2022 and understood right away what was happening. And the poor souls who were just waiting and waiting and waiting for it to all make sense. Well, here's to hoping maybe now we have the reasoning that could heal the souls.
It's out of the park.
Golf has always been my absolute least favorite sport, and Wii Sports made worse in Club when they forced the gamepad to be integrated for no other reason than, whoa, he hit it off the ground, oh my god. I have a bit of a bias here, but Switch Sports doesn't do anything, not a single thing to somehow make golf a more riveting experience. It's got a lot of the same pros and cons as bowling does. You can go at your own pace free of online lag, but then you have to wait forever, and I mean significantly longer for things to wrap up. The Joy-Con doesn't work great. It either gives an extremely soft tap or sends the ball flying. And while I admire the emphasis on immersion here, lush greens, quiet atmosphere, background noises, free of music, I just don't think this is what people needed to get back on their feet with Switch Sports. Look, this game was announced and launched within a span of 2 months, but it took 7 whole months to release one sport, a returning sport, with 21 holes, none of which are new, and it is the only part of this update. There's no hidden Easter egg like in the previous update, it's just golf, something we've known about since February and have played every game since 2006. There was zero hype. And I'm not even gonna waste time entertaining the idea of what would have been better because that was it. On February 28th, 2023, version 1.4 dropped, introducing the ability to obtain collections you had missed. Only one a week, but that's a huge improvement and something I complained about personally. And this would have been more celebrated, A, if most people hadn't already moved on, and B, if just a few weeks later it was not announced that the 50-second collection would be the last. Yes, version 1.4 is the version of the game still being utilized to this day, well over a year later, which meant it was over. The weekly rotations were over, the updates were over, the game was finished. And potentially new sports like dodgeball, baseball, no, only blue ball. When we get to this point, I always try to look back on the free update titles a bit softer. Like with New Horizons and Star Allies, the updates took forever, but they did make the experience better. Depending on how you want to look at Switch Sports, you could say it updated faster. I mean, the game only lived a year and really got 1.5 substantial updates. But even now, post-mortem, the game still operates on a weekly basis and has dumb rules that have prevented maximum enjoyment. It's so funny. Usually when we do this retrospective song and dance, we're diving into a game that's been long since forgotten about, and Switch Sports does occupy that, but it's only 2 years old. The game sold 10 million copies, but where the heck are those 10 million people now? Matches take longer to find, online is riddled with bots who don't block in volleyball. It was easier for me to find matches in Wii Sports Club over the weekend than in this game. That's not true. I think the biggest crime of Switch Sports is that it checked off a dream with a nightmare. And I'm gonna end this video by referencing the very first video I ever made on Wii Sports. I just wanted to play some sports on the Switch. On the go, online. Switch Sports somehow manages to give me that, but in the worst way possible. By turning the series into a Game Pass. Whatever, fine, make it a live service game, I don't care. But maybe keep it alive longer than a year? Add more modes to make it the social experience it tries to be more honest in the rollout that it pretty much requires online? Let the cosmetic items be used on guests or other accounts on the console? Add more sports? Let the Miis have customization options that aren't just a single outfit?